Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Probir Chowdhury, and I'm a partner at Sagar Associates Bangalore office. And welcome to the JSA Insight series. I'm very excited that we have today with us the young and dynamic Nithin Kamath from Zerodha. Welcome, Nithin.
Hey, thanks, Praveen, for having me on this.
Most welcome, and thank you for your time. Um, the most important question, Nitin, is that how did you come up with the name Zerodha? I mean, we all know that Zerodha is a combination of zero and rodha, which basically means barrier in Sanskrit. So just it's so unique. So what's the genesis? What was the reason why Zerodha?
Right. So thing is, in the previous avatar, I used to trade the markets, and I traded with I think 10 or 12 brokers, and most stockbrokers usually, have this money or wealth or security in their names. At one point of time, we were sub brokers for a larger firm called Way2Wealth. And one of the customers had this problem that he had to log into way2wealth.com every day, but he was losing money in the markets. In a sense, we wanted to have a name that sounded true to what we were trying to do, and which was essentially trying to remove barriers for very active traders like us. Uh, I've always loved the Z sound, and it was very unique because there weren't too many Indian businesses. But the thing about name is, like I said, a lot of people told me, when you're coming up with this name, saying, it's too tough on your tongue. Maybe you shouldn't call this. I mean, even today, a lot of people, there are different versions. Some call it Zerodha, some call it Zerodha, some call it Zerodha. I mean, so it's. I don't really think name really matters as much. But for us, the whole point when we were trying to name it was try to stick to what we're trying to do as a business, which is not come across like a broker who's promising to make you money, or a broker who's promising to kind of, somehow misrepresent by using a name. So that was essentially the idea.
Very interesting. I also had a tough time initially figuring out how to pronounce Zerodha. But we've just been reading a lot about the media, and it says that you have grown 100% month on month during COVID-19 and the lockdown. And this is a lot of businesses suffered. We heard a lot of sad stories of layoffs. But how did you manage as an organization? How did you manage this turbulent time? And what was sort of the insights into your growth during COVID?
No, it's not really 100% month on month. We added between 200 to 300,000 new customers every month. It's because so we were already, see, the thing is, we are already I think 11-year-old business almost. So we are not like really a new company anymore. So going into COVID, we were at around 2 million customers. That was Feb of last year. Now we are at 4.5 million customers. So we have actually grown 100% on a very large kind of a base. Like I said, I kind of keep giving credit all the time about right place, right time. But I think to me, you need to be at it all the time to kind of benefit out of that right place, right time. So, for example, Kailash, who heads our tech, joined us in 2013, and our product journey started from 2013. Right? The trading platform that we are running is the third version of complete new. It's Kite 3.0, which is it's been built grounds up 3 times over, right? And which meant that the platform was ready to handle the scale that came through. Because in our business, you can't be down for a minute, right? As in, because markets are moving, and being down for a minute in a year like last year when the volatility just spiked off the roof, you can't even add business. We keep talking about this. If we didn't have the latest version of Kite, I don't think we would be able to handle. We would have had to say no to customers. So I think what we did right was actually before COVID, which was constantly keep improving the product. And I think our tech team with Kailash on board, they're very finicky about every small thing. So if there's a little improvement, they'll go and work on it. Thankfully for us, we had a data center that was commissioned that just went live just as soon as the lockdown hit, because if it hadn't gone live in March last year, I think we wouldn't have been able to commission that. I mean, take it live for at least another 3 or 4 months. So we got extremely lucky that we had that data center go up, which kind of took a lot of this load. But apart from that, actually, the last year has been, quite luckily for us, quite spectacular. So, I mean, I'd be lying if I said, that we had trouble in any form. I mean, the trouble was really in the sense, the worry was always about scale. All those levers that we have put in place, is it working fine or not? I mean, that was essentially, the worry. But we had kind of the infra, the process, everything required to scale in place, right? And so we kind of benefited significantly last year in terms of how the business has grown. So I don't really think, I mean, there was really any bad time last year.
Right. Do you think, Nitin, that because people were more at home last year, and they had more time on their hand, and that's why they sort of took the risk to go on your platform and not really go by the traditional? So you think that has also impacted and really benefited your business because people had more time to research? People picked up new hobbies. Like many people, trading would have been something which, if you ask me, I was very afraid of trading. I'm like, just give it to your investment advisor because who has the time? But now you're sitting at home, you're locked in, right? Do you think that kind of really played an impact?
Absolutely. I think there were two or three big things that happened. One was the fall, and the fact that people were locked home, and the fact that bank rates are at the lowest ever. Suddenly got this first push of customers who came in because there was a fall, right? And that crowd which bought into March, April of last year, I mean, they saw significant amounts of money, very quickly, right? And greed is the biggest enabler. I mean, whatever said and done, right? And the guys who made money went out and told others, saying, you know what, I bought these stocks and I'm up 10%, 15% in 2 months or whatever, right? Whereas a bank is giving you 5%, 5.5% for a year. So that just I think triggered the right, and then the follow through happened, which is a lot of first time investors came through. And I think today's the audience that have opened accounts in the last 1 year, majority of them are less than 35 years of age, right? And this audience also cares for product experience as much as credibility, right? Like for example, a platform like ours, we lose out when it comes to credibility when you compare us to an ICICI, HDFC, etc. Right? But because in a business of money, credibility is very important, right? As in, you wouldn't put money in a new age bank just because FD rate is a little more, right? Because you're concerned about your safety. So we are, as a broker, are almost like a bank. So when people park their securities with us, they're trusting us, right? But like I said, the younger generation cares for product experience as much as credibility, right? So, and I think that's where we took a big advantage. I mean, we kind of got a lot of business from, which would have otherwise probably gone to traditional banks. Also, I think the way traditional banks operated, which is more physical, I think they got impacted a lot more because of COVID than us, right? Because for us, all our processes are online. We were actually working from home 2 weeks before the lockdown itself, right? So we had said, this seems inevitable now. We should, and it was a really smooth transition for us. It's like so smooth that now we are questioning if we should actually go back to work. So, and as in, I think in all likelihood we will probably be a permanent work from home kind of business, which is with maybe once a week or once in few weeks, people core team catch up and things like that.
But that's an interesting thought, and I will pick up on the work from home. But in hindsight, do you think that you had a contingency plan or the disaster management strategy before the outbreak? Because, like you said, you're not a startup, right? You said you're about 11 years old. A lot of the audience members here are like young tech startups. So do you think that it was good to have a strategy and that's why you were able to, I'm not going to use the word ride the pandemic easy because, it's not easy on many people for many counts, but do you think that's having a disaster management plan is really a good thing? And just sort of your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be lying if I'd say that it's disaster management plan. I mean, I think the strategy was to be as efficient as possible, right? And that strategy actually acted like a disaster management plan, right? Which is to be able to figure how do we scale our team without having to scale our office setups, right? I mean, so we've been always constantly thinking about that, saying that do we really need to, if we have to hire 100 more people, do we really need an office, right? So can we kind of make people work from home? Because we didn't ever see a point of people work. Like, our sales and support, we kind of always knew that, this can work from home. There is no need for people to waste their 3-4 hours of their time coming to offices. And I'm also a big believer that economies of smaller towns and cities should be, someone should help contribute to that. So right now, one of the things that I get most excited about is the fact that most of our team is sitting out of small towns and villages and etc. Right? So, which means the person who makes 50,000, 1 lakh rupees a month in Bangalore versus making in a small town, he has so much more bang for the buck, and around him he's gonna kind of create an economy, just as 50,000, 1 lakh rupees, right? So I think those thoughts were always running in our mind, and it just so happened that that path of most efficient whatever way to take forward as a business also acted like a disaster management plan, right? And I think especially for businesses who are in a regulated space, I think you always constantly have to have this regulatory foresight as such, right? As in the sense, you need to be evolving your business before regulations come into place, right? So that way, when the regulations actually come into place, you are kind of one step ahead of your competition, right? When I say regulation, it also means stuff like, can we think of being more efficient as a business as compared to your competition, right? As in, because in today's world where capital is available easily, right? Efficiency of capital is not something that people focus on, right? I mean, people are constantly focusing on growth versus saying, how can I make my capital more efficient, right? And maybe it's also got to the fact that we don't have external capital, raised as a business, that we care so much more for the money we spend, So we are always constantly thinking about, how to make it work more for us, So.
And that's a good point you raised, that you haven't raised capital, and I'm sure that's something which is very unique, because I'm sure many investors are lining up to say, why are you not taking their checks? But I wanted to pick up your point that you mentioned about staying ahead of the game and the regulations. So any specific, if you can give any industry specific challenges that you may have needed to overcome during the initial days of the pandemic. It could be a funny story also, anything, and and I'm very interested in knowing that how do you really manage to stay ahead of the regulation, or what are your sort of inputs on that?
Right. See, the thing is, like I said, one of the, I think, best things to have happened in this pandemic is actually how quickly all the regulators, be it SEBI or be it RBI, right? I mean, they relaxed all the regulations to make sure the entire industry goes, and stock markets weren't down for 1 hour or 30 minutes, right? I mean, SEBI ensured that markets are, while there was so much demands from the press saying, what you should, I think there was a hashtag running, Band Karo Bazaar, and I mean, some stupidity like that. So they ensured, SEBI ensured, work continues, the exchanges remain open. So when I actually, so regulation actually eased down after the pandemic. So when I said staying ahead of regulations, it's actually, historically, as a business as well, which is like, I'll tell you, one of the recent regulations that SEBI introduced was around this thing called as peak margin penalties. So when you trade in the stock markets, you're required to have, if you want to buy 100 rupees of stocks, you're required to have at least 20 rupees on you, if you're doing a leverage trade. So until last year, there was no penalty if there was no 20 rupees collected. Right? So brokers were varying, between 0 rupees to 20 rupees, right? But the thing is, if a broker allows you to trade with 1 rupee for 100 rupees, he's taking systemic risk of sorts. Right. So SEBI came in and said, that now you need to collect 20 rupees. Right. And this, we kind of knew all the time that this is coming. Right. We didn't know when it's coming. It's always, So as a business, right from the start, we always collected that 20 rupees. right? So as soon as this regulation now came in, that which made sure that the entire competition has to catch up to this. So it just gave us, like, like we were there when the business was built. So the thing is, when people build, build businesses in a regulated space, there are, you build one based on regulations, and one, two is also a regulation in terms of spirit, as in spirit of the regulation, right? So I think, uh, like being in spirit, if you can ensure your business is in spirit of regulation, as and when those regulations go from being in spirit to being in rule, in terms of written rule, you get like a big advantage over your over competition. So it's generally, we've seen this happen over the last 10 years. Many regulations which were in spirit, which was not written down, got written down, and every time that got written down, we I think went at least 10 steps ahead of our competition because we were there ready before that. So
So interesting point. So Nitin, don't you think that you should be then advertising your unique feature? Because I was just reading an article by your brother. You can probably pin it on him, by the way. You can tell because he actually said, I think that your strategy is simple. You just do not spend money on advertising or marketing. And he said, of course, that you focus by building the brand. But like these insights that you just mentioned, like, don't you think it would only sort of enhance your customer base or give you the edge over? Just like why not an
yeah.
advertiser?
Okay, so the thing is, yeah. So even before Zerodha, right? So I used to be a very active. I always had this key of sharing knowledge on stock markets. So I used to run some of the largest Yahoo Messenger groups, Orkut communities, etc. And I've been trading from 2000, 2001. So I'd always interacted with traders even before Zerodha, right? And see, the thing about trading and investing, it's not like buying a phone, right? You don't get up one day morning, like, like the way you look at an advertisement for a phone and decide to buy the phone, right? If say Shah Rukh Khan is holding a trading and demat account, you don't open a trading and demat account because Shah Rukh Khan's holding an ad saying they're open a trading and demat. Usually the enablers for trading and demat, opening a trading account is a friend or a family. I started trading because one of my friends was trading and he said, boss, I made some money. Do you want to know how and stuff like that? And my immediate reaction, okay, I also want to figure, can you tell me where to open the account? Right? The business of trading and investing is a very word of mouth kind of, network kind of a business model, right? As in, no one just looks at an advertisement and decides to trade invest. There is usually an enabler, right? So yeah. So till date, we've spent 0 rupees on advertising. We haven't done a Google AdWord thing as well. So when we started the business, because we were bootstrapped, firstly there was no money to advertise, right? As in, in 2010. So we had to rely on other ways of guerrilla ways of marketing and advertisement. So I was a very popular pseudo self of mine in a lot of online trading communities. So I use a lot of those to first go and seed the idea of Zerodha. And when people came to us, see, as a business, what we've done is like while people talk about our products, they talk about our pricing. I think what we also disrupted was, I think in terms, which actually is a bigger disruption, is in terms of transparency. All the 4.5 million customers at Zerodha get a same deal, right? As in, not a single person has gotten a different deal, right? But if you compare us to a traditional financial services firm, right? Like you walk into a bank, the banker gives you a deal based on your net worth, right? That means he's forcing himself to be opaque. Because now if I given 10 deals to 10 different persons, I can't come out in the open and talk about it because I'm forced to be opaque as a business, right? I think by deciding to offer the same deal for all our customers, we made our business model very transparent, right? Which meant that, that word of mouth kicked in a lot more, right? Because, every customer knew that what he's getting is the best deal, right? We spent crazy amount of time and effort on our education initiative. So we run three things. One is called as Varsity, which is like a MOOC initiative, which is probably amongst the top 3-4 education initiatives in terms of participation around the world. We launched Trading Q&A, which is like a Stack Overflow Quora, for trading. We have a blog called Z Connect. So we've spent hours and hours, I don't know how many thousands of hours building content and helping people out with no questions asked. So yeah, so I think the good thing about building a business like that is that you're forced to do whatever is right for the customer to grow your business, right? And and when you do that, you don't really need to advertise in today's world. So it's I think I have I mean, my views on advertisement marketing is actually very different to what people have. But yeah, but I think in a business like ours where the product is not the same. If there were 10 different brokers and all of them were offering the same product, we would have been probably forced to advertise, right? But I know that as long as we can stay ahead in terms of product, we don't really need to advertise. And also the other problem is when you're advertising, the regulations don't allow us to sell greed, right? So you can't advertise saying, come invest in the market, make 30% per year. Right? If we could do it, I would have done it, right? I would have advertised. I mean, so what can your advertisement really say, right? I mean, your advertisement can say, I offer world's best trading platform. And every single broker already says it, right? I mean, you look up Google ads or whatever, right? I mean, like right from ICSA to whatever, right? As in every broker is saying the same same thing. So how will a customer even know what's the best trading platform in the world, right? So yes, I mean, it's been a strategy that has worked well for the business. And our customers, because they know that we don't advertise, we have realized the word of mouth has kicked in even more, right? So they know that they need to help us grow, in a sense, almost, So, and we've been, we've asked our customers in almost every other blog post, we tell the same thing. Let us worry about building the product for you. Why don't you help us spread the word for us? So it's been a really nice journey that way.
That's really interesting. I think it gives a sight into who you really are. So let's just get to know Nithin on his philanthropic and his other personal side. You head a fintech fund, an incubator, Rain Matter. So what was where did that come from, and what is the purpose? Was it to help entrepreneurs like yourself? And if you can sort of just tell a little bit about.
Yeah, so around 2016, we realized that we are becoming like a big fish in a small pond. Markets are very shallow in India, and what we need to do is grow the capital market ecosystem in this country. And we also kind of realized that the problem can't be solved by us, so we need to do it by partnering with entrepreneurs. Right? To become a stockbroker in India, the biggest, kind of plug into the capital market ecosystem, I think the biggest challenge is compliance, regulation, all your infra that needs to be set up, right? So we went and said, we have already done all of this. Why do you want to kind of, rebuild this, right? Your problem to solve in India is build the new user experience that can get new customers to the market. So why don't you use our APIs to do it? So we were one of the first brokers, maybe the first broker in the world to offer this thing called as booking as a service, as a bunch of APIs, right? And we invited startups to come build on top of us. When we met the startups, we realized, fintech is hot today. It wasn't hot in 2016, right? So we realized that they probably needed some money as well. By then we were profitable, so we started cutting between 2 to 10 crores of capital checks and helping the startups fund as well. And for the startups, other than these APIs and the funding, the most important thing they got was a really quick way to validate their product. Right? Because like I said earlier, right, in the business of money, people don't trust products very soon. Right. So what we did was we showcased all these startups as Zerodha to our customer. For example, Small Case was the first big platform, that came through the partnership. And Small Case was visible on Zerodha itself. So a lot of our customers use Small Case because they believed us, right? Until I think last 2 years back, a lot of people thought Small Case is Zerodha. Now that Small Case is plugged on top of a lot of other brokers, they know that it's a different business, right? But for a long time, they thought it's Zerodha. So there are, I think, almost 20 startups in this portfolio. But if you speak to any of these startups, all our investments was done with the objective of broadening the capital market ecosystem in this country, and not with any other ROI in mind. So we have never asked them about what's happened to our investment or how much return you'll give me or give me an exit or any of that. So it's the only objective is growing the capital market ecosystem. And we're super I think one of the most exciting things about my life is to see a lot of these startups become their own businesses today. I mean, they're doing really well. They're getting newer people to the markets who wouldn't have ever come to the stock markets. Right? I personally believe, for us as a country to grow, financialization is the key, and it's onus on people like us to do whatever we can to make that happen.
Yeah, that's yeah, that's really interesting, Nitin, and I think so other than, I guess you're also growing the ecosystem, you're giving back. And I think that's really important. That's one thing that is the essence of, I think, helping each other out. And I think that's really commendable. So and how do you de-stress? I mean, I noticed the pool table at the back, but I also believe you're a musician. So what is a typical Bangalore trend? Everyone has to be in a band. Do you play in a band? Would you play and sing? Let's talk fun stuff about the actual Nitin beyond the work.
Yeah. No. I mean, I've always played some sport through my life. I used to play a lot of basketball. I mean, I love cycling, swimming, running. I spend. I mean, the last 1 year has been tough playing a sport, so with someone else. But sports is a very important thing. My mom was a Carnatic musical teacher, so I've learned as in I've been exposed to music right from when I was a kid. So I haven't really formally learned Carnatic music, but it's always played. I mean, I could probably sing a bunch of things without ever learning it because it was. She used to teach every morning for like 3-4 hours. So today, I mean, I picked up a little bit of guitar when I was in college. So there was a small little band, and I used to play with them. I've recently started trying to learn some Western classical on the guitar. My son is 6 years, 5.5, 6 years now, and he picked up the drums very early. So one of my most favorite times right now in a day is to actually, we spend about 30 minutes every day jamming up. And so that's quite de-stressing. And my wife likes to travel, so she makes sure we are traveling quite frequently. So at least when I'm traveling, I'm kind of switched off for a few times.
So I guess this was great, and we look forward to seeing you and your son perform, and hopefully there will be a live session where we can all log in, and that will give us like a fun side to Nitin. So Nitin, thank you so much. This has been really insightful. Thank you for your tips. I think it's really good that entrepreneurs like yourself are giving back to society. You're definitely a game changer. Your views on advertising, focusing on the customer. A lot of people end up marketing this at their pitch, but you're like really walking the talk. And I think that's really the success of Zerodha. I'm not on your platform yet, but definitely just encouraged to be on your platform. Thank you so much. Yeah. And have a wonderful year ahead. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Yeah. Bye.